Mean I have to retire now? Usually when someone is given an evening like this, they're way too dead to say thank you. So thank you. Over the past 9 years, I've sat at home and watched this show and this parade of comedy legends, and I said, as any comedian would say when he would watch this show, why him? But now that I'm him, I'm looking at all these old clips. I remember something that my grandfather once said to me. He said to me, if you hang around the store long enough, sooner or later, they'll give you something. You know, I think about Mark Twain. Whenever I think about Mark Twain, one thing comes to mind. Cliff Notes. But after I got the call that I'd won this award and all those other great people on stage didn't, I thought it only right to become a little more familiar with this great man's work. I read everything. And you know something? He was okay. I don't think I'd name an award after him, but he was okay. And I also thought it would be perfectly fitting to do some of this acceptance speech in the spirit of the great Mark Twain. I should tell you, to further capture his spirit, I whittled this chair. I also whittled this pipe and the harmonica and the first 3 rows of the balcony. It was a very full day. For you, sir. I was born in New York City, but grew up near the seaside in the sleepy town of Long Beach, New York, to 2 very devoted Hebrew parents who settled there because they always dreamed of someday having a very tiny lawn. I was the last of 3 strong sons who grew to love the roar of laughter from the family elders as I performed for them when they would gather Grandma Susie's house to partake of kosher parts of cows and chickens that had everybody filling up with gas so big they looked like Sebastian Cabot on a hot day. The family, who spoke mostly Yiddish, which is a combination of German and phlegm, had a history of actors in the family. My grandfather, a man named Julius Crystal, was an actor in the Yiddish theater. He lived in Grand Rapids, Michigan at the time, and he had translated King Lear into Yiddish. And he was touring the countryside for audiences that wanted to see Shakespeare performed in Yiddish. Four days later, the family moved to Brooklyn. My daddy was in the music business, producing jazz concerts, and sometimes the great jazz players from New Orleans and Kansas City and Chicago, as well as the giants of Harlem, would frequent our modest little home. The house always smelled of brisket and bourbon. And after smoking cigarettes with no writing on them, they would often wail into the night with spontaneous outbursts of the music that still fills my soul. To all the greats who call me face, forever will I thank you. Can you dig that? I knew that you could. We also gathered around the TV set for the golden age of comedy. My parents would let us stay up late on school nights to watch the giants. Sid Caesar, Red Skelton, Burns and Allen, Ernie Kovacs, Phil Silvers, Jack Parr, Jonathan Winters. But of all the great comic influences, Mr. Bill Cosby was the one I most related to. I would listen to those records, and on those records, he was like talking about me. He had brothers. I had brothers. He played football at Temple. I belonged to a temple. And now, so many years later, here I am tonight, still in front of a big crowd, where I feel as warm as an apple pie in the windowsill of Grandma Susie's kitchen. Well, most of those first audiences are gone now, but the echoes of their laughter will be in my brain forever and ever. I thank them for listening. They were a very captive audience. They had to be. My mom had stolen their car keys.